Hyun stood in the control room of the orbital defense station, watching the screens that showed the space around Rex Prime. He had been a commander in the Imperial Guard for 20 years. He had seen many things in his career: wars, rebellions, the destruction of entire worlds. But he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screen that morning. A distortion appeared in space, 400,000 kilometers from the planet. It looked like reality itself was bending and twisting. Then a ship came through. It was not very large, maybe the size of a heavy cruiser in the Vrex fleet. But it looked wrong. The design was different from anything Hyun had ever seen. The hull was smooth and dark, covered in markings that he did not recognize. The most strange thing was the energy reading. The ship showed almost no power signature. It was like the vessel was completely shut down, drifting through space like a dead thing. Hyun checked the galactic database, searching for any match to the ship's design. Nothing. No civilization in the known galaxy built ships that looked like this. Below him, on the planet's surface, the Grand Fleet Review was taking place. 50,000 warships filled the sky, celebrating the Empire's latest conquest of the Thalax system. The Vrex Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were the strongest military power anyone knew. 847 star systems belonged to them. Countless species lived under their control, some willingly, most not. Hyun sent a message to Fleet Admiral Taeyang, who was overseeing the celebration. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked annoyed at being interrupted during such an important event. "What is it, Commander?" Taeyang asked. "Sir, we have an unknown vessel. It appeared through some kind of spatial distortion. The design does not match anything in our database." Taeyang looked at the data Hyun sent him. His annoyed expression changed to one of interest. "Send a squadron. 12 battlecruisers. Standard first contact protocol. Tell them to identify themselves or be destroyed." Hyun gave the orders. 12 of the Dominion's finest warships broke away from the celebration and moved toward the unknown vessel. Each battlecruiser carried 3,000 warriors and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They formed a circle around the strange ship, weapons ready. For several minutes, nothing happened. The unknown ship just floated there, silent and dark. Then finally it responded. An audio transmission came through, speaking in perfect Vrex common language. The voice belonged to a woman. She sounded calm, almost tired. "This is Captain Jiwoo of the UESC Horizon. We represent the United Earth Space Command. We are looking for information about human colonies that may have come through this region 200 years ago. We do not want to fight. We want to talk peacefully." Hyun felt confused. Human Earth? These words meant nothing. They did not appear in any galactic record. He had never heard of such a species or such a place. He looked at the other officers in the control room. They all looked equally confused. Admiral Taeyang did not seem confused. He seemed angry. In his mind, any unknown species entering Dominion space without permission was breaking the law. It did not matter if they claimed to come in peace. The Vrex had heard such claims before, usually from species trying to buy time before attacking. "Unknown vessel," Taeyang said, his voice hard and commanding. "You have entered sovereign Dominion space without permission. Turn off all your systems. Prepare to be boarded. Submit to Imperial authority. If you refuse, we will destroy you." Another long silence followed. Hyun watched his screens carefully. The human ship still showed no real power signature. It just sat there in space, surrounded by 12 massive warships that could easily tear it apart. Then Captain Jiwoo spoke again. This time her voice carried a different tone. She sounded sad, resigned, like someone who had seen this situation before and knew how it would end. "Admiral Taeyang, we can see your 12 ships approaching us with weapons ready. We can also see several thousand more warships near your planet. I need to tell you something important. Humanity has met other civilizations 47 times in the past 300 years. Every time we tried to make peace first. 43 times the other side chose to attack us instead of talking. I am asking you, please do not make that same choice." Taeyang laughed. He actually laughed at her warning. To him, it sounded like a desperate bluff from someone who knew they were outmatched. One small ship against 12 battlecruisers. Against the entire might of the Vrex Empire. It was ridiculous. He gave his next order with confidence: fire warning shots. Show them what happens when they refuse Dominion commands. The 12 battlecruisers fired their plasma cannons. The bright blue bolts of energy streaked across space, passing within meters of the human ship's hull. They were meant to scare, not to kill. A show of force to make the unknown vessel understand the danger they were in. The human ship did not move. It did not try to dodge. It did not respond at all to the warning shots. It just continued floating there, as if the plasma fire meant nothing. Then something changed. Hyun saw it first on his sensors. The Horizon's energy signature, which had been almost zero, suddenly began to climb. But it did not climb slowly. It jumped up fast, faster than should be possible. In just 10 seconds, the small human ship was producing more power than all 12 Vrex battlecruisers combined. "Sir," Hyun said, his voice urgent. "Their power levels are increasing. Rapidly. I have never seen anything like this." Taeyang looked at the data. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. But pride kept him from backing down. "All ships' weapons to full power. If they do anything hostile, destroy them immediately." Captain Ji-woo's voice came through one last time. Now it was cold, empty of emotion. "You were warned. We tried to avoid this. Protocol 7 is now active. May your gods have mercy on you, because we will not." 3 minutes had passed since the Horizon first appeared. 3 minutes from first contact to this moment. Hyun would remember that timing for the rest of his life. 3 minutes was all it took for everything to change. The human ship opened fire. 6 ports along the Horizon's hull opened up. 6 small objects launched out, moving incredibly fast. They were not plasma bolts or missiles. They looked like simple metal projectiles, each barely a meter long. The Vrex point defense systems did not even register them as threats. They were too small, too simple. 3 seconds later, all 12 battlecruisers vanished. They did not explode in the normal sense. The kinetic energy of the projectiles, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, simply converted the massive warships into clouds of superheated gas. There was no debris, no pieces of hull spinning through space, no escape pods. 36,000 Vrex warriors just ceased to exist in an instant. Hyun stared at his screens, unable to believe what he was seeing. The sensors showed nothing where 12 battlecruisers had been just moments before. Nothing but dissipating heat signatures and expanding clouds of ionized particles. The control room was completely silent. Every officer, every technician, every warrior who had witnessed what just happened stood frozen in shock. The Vrex Dominion had ruled for 3,000 years through overwhelming military might. Their battlecruisers were considered among the most powerful warships in the galaxy. One unknown ship had just erased 12 of them in 3 seconds. Admiral Taeyang's face on the screen had gone pale. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the arms of his command chair. Hyun could see the Admiral's mind working, trying to understand, trying to find an explanation for what had just occurred. The Horizon remained where it was, floating in space like nothing had happened. Its power signature had dropped back down to almost nothing. The ship looked as peaceful and harmless as it had when it first arrived, but Hyun knew better now. They all knew better. That small, quiet ship was the most dangerous thing any of them had ever encountered, and the humans had said this had happened 43 times before. 2 hours after the battle ended, every communication system in Vrex space activated at once. Military networks, civilian broadcasts, personal devices, everything. The humans had somehow taken control of the entire Dominion's communication infrastructure without anyone noticing. A face appeared on every screen across 847 star systems. It was Captain Ji-woo. She looked human, similar enough to the Vrex to be recognizable as a living being, but clearly different. Her features were softer, her build smaller, but her eyes were hard with determination and sadness. "People of the Vrex Dominion," she began, speaking in clear Vrex Common. "My name is Captain Ji-woo. I command the USG Horizon. I represent the United Earth Space Command. You do not know us. Until today, we did not know you. We came here looking for lost human colonies, people who left Earth generations ago to find new homes. We came in peace. Your leaders chose war." On Vrex Prime, Min-jae sat in his hidden intelligence bunker recording every word. He was an intelligence officer, trained to gather and analyze information. Right now, he was witnessing the most important first contact in Dominion history, and it was going very, very badly. Captain Ji-woo continued speaking. As she talked, data began appearing alongside her image. Star charts, historical records, proof of what she was saying. 300 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself, Ji-woo said. We fought terrible wars. We created weapons that could crack planets open. that could make stars explode, that could break the laws of physics themselves. We were very good at killing. We almost killed ourselves completely. Minjae's fingers flew across his keyboard, cross-referencing the human data with Dominion records. He found something. 4 minor civilizations at the edge of known space had disappeared over the past century. Just gone, with no explanation. The locations matched the timeline and positions in the human data. We survived our wars, but only just, Jiwoo went on. When we finally united and moved into space, we hoped to find other species. We wanted to trade, to learn, to live peacefully with others. We have made first contact with 47 different civilizations. Every single time we tried to establish peaceful communication first. She paused and her expression became harder. 43 times the other civilization attacked us. They saw our offer of peace as weakness. They saw us as prey to be conquered or destroyed. And 43 times we had to respond with Protocol 7. Across Vrex space, billions of people watched and listened. Many were angry, seeing this as an insult to the Dominion. Others were afraid, having just watched the human ship destroy 500 warships in minutes. But everyone wanted to know what was Protocol 7. What had happened to those 43 civilizations? Protocol 7 is our response when peaceful contact fails, Jiwoo explained. When a civilization fires on us after we offer peace. When they show us that they see all strangers as enemies, we cannot let them keep the power to threaten others. We learned from our own history. Mercy to aggressors only encourages more aggression. Allowing violent empires to exist means they will hurt others. She brought up new data, images of the Vrex Dominion's conquests, worlds burned, species enslaved, populations killed when they resisted. 3,000 years of expansion through violence and fear. Your empire controls 847 star systems. Your fleet once had 50,000 ships. You have conquered countless species, killed billions of people, and ruled through terror for 3,000 years. That ends today. Not because we want to conquer you, but because we cannot allow your aggression to continue. He unwatched from the orbital station, his hands gripping the edge of his console. This was it. This was the moment when humanity would show what they really wanted. Conquest? Revenge? The extinction of the Vrex species? To prove what I am saying, Jiwoo said, I will give you a demonstration. There are coordinates appearing on your screens now. This is the location of your primary military shipyard, 20 light-years from here. In 10 minutes, you will see what Protocol 7 means. Yoon checked the coordinates. The shipyard was one of the most defended locations in the entire Dominion. It produced 500 new warships every year. Its defensive network included 10,000 automated weapon platforms, gravity mines that could trap entire fleets, and shield generators powerful enough to withstand assault from 100 battleships. Nothing short of a massive fleet could threaten it. Everyone waited, watching the countdown. When it reached 0, all communication from the shipyard stopped. Every sensor, every signal, every transmission went dark simultaneously. 3 minutes later, a drone ship arrived at the shipyard location and began broadcasting images. Minjae pulled up the feed and felt his blood go cold. The shipyard was gone. Not destroyed in any way that made sense. There was no debris field, no wreckage, no signs of explosion. The massive structure that had been there. An artificial moon housing millions of workers and enough firepower to defend against any fleet had simply been taken apart at the atomic level and scattered into nothing. This is what our weapons can do, Jiwoo said, her voice steady. We can dismantle any structure, any ship, any defense. We do this not because we enjoy it, but because we will not allow aggressive empires to continue threatening others. She let that sink in for a moment, then continued. You have 48 hours to make a choice. These are our terms. Dismantle your military hierarchy, release all the species you have conquered and let them govern themselves. Reduce your fleet to defensive ships only, and submit to monitoring by the species you have oppressed with human observers to ensure fairness. If you do this, you keep your lives, your culture, your homeworld. You continue to exist, just not as conquerors. The Supreme Council chamber was in chaos. Counselors shouted at each other, some demanding resistance, others calling for immediate surrender. The empire that had never bent to anyone now faced a choice between submission and destruction. If you refuse these terms, Jiwoo said, her words cutting through the noise, then in 47 hours more ships will arrive. Not one ship. Not 12. Enough to systematically dismantle every military asset you possess across all 847 systems at the same time. We would prefer not to do this. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Captain Jiwoo's face disappeared from the screens. The horizon remained in orbit above Rex Prime, a small dark shape against the planet, a silent promise of what would happen if the Dominion chose wrong. Minji worked through the night, analyzing everything the humans had revealed. He found records of the 4 missing civilizations he had identified earlier. They were not gone. They still existed, but they were different now. The Kronar had once controlled 200 star systems through military conquest. Now they occupied 20, their fleet reduced to patrol ships, their former subjects independent. The Thaxians, the Quelnar, the Breen, all showed the same pattern, all defeated by humanity, all still alive but transformed from empires into single-system nations or small federations. Protocol 7 did not mean extinction. It meant the end of empire, the forced transformation from conqueror to just another civilization among many. Minji presented his findings to the Supreme Council. The room fell silent as he showed them the evidence. The humans had meant every word. They did not want to exterminate the Vrex. They wanted to stop the Vrex from doing to others what they had done for 3,000 years. If we submit, Councillor Bora said slowly, we survive. Our people continue. Our culture remains. We just stop conquering others. If we fight, Minji added quietly, we die. All of us. They have shown they can reach anywhere in our empire simultaneously. They can destroy our entire fleet faster than we can mobilize it. Mathematics does not lie. Not everyone accepted this. Councillor Taehyun, leader of the military faction, stood and addressed the council with passion. We are Vrex. We have ruled for 3,000 years. One ship cannot dictate terms to an empire. We still have 49,000 warships across our territory. We have fortress worlds, defense networks, weapons that can destroy moons. If we mobilize everything, if we show these humans that we will never surrender, they will respect us. But Bora shook her head. She had been a military commander for longer than Taehyun had been alive. She had won 100 battles. She knew when a fight could not be won. They destroyed 512 ships in 14 minutes. One ship. If they send 100 ships, our entire fleet dies in less than an hour. If they send 1,000? She trailed off, letting the math speak for itself. Pride is not worth extinction. The debate continued for hours. Outside, the horizon waited in silent orbit. Inside the council chamber, the future of the Vrex Dominion was being decided. Would they submit to impossible terms from an unknown species, or would they choose to fight and face certain destruction? The clock was counting down. 48 hours, then humanity would return and the choice would be made for them. The Supreme Council met continuously for 36 hours, arguing about what to do. Outside the council chamber, the entire Dominion held its breath and waited. Ships remained docked in their berths, unsure whether they would be fighting or surrendering. Civilians watched the news, hoping for answers that never came. With 12 hours left before the deadline, Councillor Taehyun made his move. He had gathered support from other hardliners in the military, officers who believed that submission was worse than death. In the middle of the night, they attempted a coup. The plan was simple. Arrest the moderate councillors who wanted to surrender, assume emergency powers, order full military mobilization across all systems. Show the humans that the Vrex would never submit, that they would fight to the last warrior if necessary. But General Seojin, commander of the Imperial Guard, had other ideas. When Taehyun ordered him to arrest Councillor Bora and the other moderates, Seojin refused. Instead, he arrested Taehyun and his supporters. I took an oath to protect the Vrex people, Seojin told Taehyun as guards led him away, not to satisfy the pride of councillors who want to be remembered as heroes. You want to fight an enemy that can erase us from existence? I watched them destroy 500 ships without taking a single hit. My soldiers have families, children. I will not order them to die for nothing. Word of the failed coup spread quickly through the military. Seojin's words resonated with soldiers and officers across the fleet. They were warriors, yes, trained to fight and die for the Dominion, but they were not suicidal. The humans had demonstrated overwhelming superiority. Resistance meant certain death. Submission meant survival. The choice became clear. 4 hours before the deadline, High Councillor Chanmi made the announcement. She appeared on every screen across Vrex space, looking exhausted but composed. People of the Vrex Dominion, she began. For 3,000 years, we have been the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. We have conquered hundreds of systems, defeated every enemy who stood against us, and ruled through strength and discipline. Today we face an enemy we cannot defeat, not because we lack courage or skill, but because we are simply outmatched in every way." She paused, letting that truth sink in. "The Supreme Council has decided to accept the human terms. We will dismantle our military hierarchy. We will release all conquered species to govern themselves. We will reduce our fleet and accept external monitoring. We do this not because we are cowards, but because the alternative is the extinction of our species. Pride is not worth the death of billions." The announcement sparked different reactions across the Empire. Some felt relief that war had been avoided. Others felt shame that the mighty Dominion had been forced to kneel. But everyone understood the reality. The Vrex had finally met an opponent they could not beat. Hyun sat in the control room of the orbital station, watching the horizon. The human ship had not moved since the battle. It had not threatened. It had not attacked. It had just waited patiently in orbit, a silent reminder of what would happen if the Vrex chose wrong. Now the waiting was over. The Dominion had surrendered. 3,000 years of empire had ended in 48 hours. What Hyun and the other Vrex did not know was that their surrender was being broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species that had ever suffered under Dominion rule was watching. The Thalax, conquered just months ago, watched with disbelief. The Quilon, enslaved for 5 centuries, watched with hope. The Fenric, living in constant fear of Vrex expansion, watched with relief. But other powerful civilizations watched too. The Corvan hegemony, second only to the Vrex in military strength. The Zathran Collective, the most technologically advanced species in known space. The Belthar Coalition, preparing for years to expand their territory through conquest. They all watched the mighty Vrex Dominion surrender to a species no one had heard of before. They all saw what one human ship could do, and they all understood the message being sent. Humanity was here, and humanity had rules. Within a week, human transport vessels arrived at Vrex Prime. They brought representatives from every species the Dominion had conquered, along with human observers. Lieutenant Jiyeon led the peacekeeping team. She was young for such an important role, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. Hyun was assigned to work with Jiyeon during the transition. It was strange, working alongside the people who had destroyed his fleet. But Jiyeon was professional and surprisingly kind. She did not treat the Vrex as defeated enemies, but as people learning a difficult lesson. The transition was remarkably smooth. The freed species, under human guidance, focused on practical matters rather than revenge. They drew new borders, established trade agreements, and set up communication networks that did not depend on Vrex control. The humans made sure everything stayed peaceful, mediating disputes when they arose. The Vrex fleet was not destroyed. That surprised many people. Instead, the warships were converted for peaceful purposes. Weapon systems were removed and replaced with cargo holds, medical facilities, and sensor equipment. Battle cruisers became transport ships. Destroyers became rescue vessels. The military that had once conquered systems now helped rebuild them. One evening, Hyun and Jiyeon were reviewing transition reports in a temporary office on the orbital station. Hyun had been thinking about the same question for weeks. Finally, he asked it. "Why show mercy? You could have destroyed us completely, made an example that would terrify every civilization in the galaxy into immediate submission. Why let us live?" Jiyeon looked up from her work. She was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. "Because we remember what it is like to be the monsters," she said finally. "Humanity almost destroyed itself. We fought wars so terrible that they make your worst nightmares look gentle. We created weapons that could break planets, ignite stars, tear holes in space itself. We got very close to complete extinction." She set down her tablet and looked at Hyun directly. "We learned the hard way. Through pain, suffering, and billions of deaths. It took us 2 centuries to figure out that power without restraint leads only to destruction. We will not force you to learn that lesson the same way we did. You get to learn from our mistakes instead of repeating them. That is the mercy we are offering. A shortcut past the worst parts of becoming a mature civilization." Hyun thought about that. The Vrex had believed they were at the peak of civilization, the most advanced and powerful species in the galaxy. Now he understood they were children compared to humanity. Children who had been stopped before they hurt themselves or others too badly. "The other 43 civilizations," Hyun said. "The ones who attacked you before us. They all received the same offer?" Yes, all still exist. All were transformed from aggressive empires into peaceful civilizations. Some adapted quickly. Others took longer. But all survived. That is always our first choice. We only destroy when there is absolutely no other option. And if we had kept fighting, if we had refused to surrender? Jian's expression became harder. Then more ships would have arrived. Enough to dismantle your entire military infrastructure across all systems simultaneously. We would have kept targeting only military assets, kept offering chances to surrender. But eventually, if you continued fighting, you would have had nothing left to fight with. Your empire would have collapsed anyway. Surrender just saved millions of lives that would have been wasted in pointless resistance. Hyun nodded slowly. The logic was cold but clear. The humans had given the Vrex a choice between surrender with honor or destruction with nothing gained. Any rational leader would choose survival. I watched your ship destroy 500 of ours, Hyun said quietly. I have served in the military for 20 years. I have seen many battles, but I have never seen anything like that. Your technology is beyond anything we can understand. The Horizon is a scout ship, Jian said. A small vessel meant for exploration and first contact situations. It is not even close to our most powerful design. Hyun felt cold. A scout ship. The vessel that had single-handedly destroyed an entire fleet was just a scout ship. What would humanity's actual military be capable of? He decided he did not want to know the answer to that question. 3 months passed. The former Vrex Dominion had transformed into 847 independent governments. Some species split into multiple nations. Others formed voluntary federations. The Vrex themselves occupied only their home system and 2 nearby colonies. Their population had mostly returned home from the empire they once ruled. It was not easy. Resentment ran deep on all sides. But humanity's presence kept the peace. 3 human ships patrolled the former Dominion space, rotating positions regularly. Just 3 ships. But everyone knew what 3 ships could do if necessary. The galaxy was changing, and the Vrex were learning to be part of it instead of ruling over it. 1 year after the Horizon appeared in Vrex space, the galaxy looked completely different. Humanity had called for a Galactic Community Summit, the largest diplomatic gathering in recorded history. Over 200 species sent representatives to attend. Ambassador Soo-hyun represented the Vrex Republic at the summit. The title still felt strange. Not the Vrex Dominion, not the Vrex Empire, just the Vrex Republic, one nation among many. It had taken months for Soo-hyun to accept this new reality, but he was learning. Captain Jiwoo no longer commanded the Horizon. She now served as Earth's lead diplomat, speaking for humanity in galactic affairs. When she addressed the assembled species, her words carried weight that went beyond her rank. Humanity does not seek an empire, she told the gathering. We have no interest in ruling others. We have been down that path before and know where it leads. But we will not permit empires to exist that threaten the freedom of other species. The Vrex were the first we encountered in this region. But they will not be the last, she paused, making sure everyone understood what came next. To any civilization watching this transmission, any power that is building fleets for aggressive expansion or conquest, I say this clearly. Reconsider. We offer partnership to all who come in peace. We offer trade, technology exchange, cultural dialogue, and mutual defense against natural disasters and cosmic threats. But to those who choose the path of domination, who choose to conquer and oppress others, we offer Protocol 7. You will always receive a warning first. You will always have the chance to choose peace. But after that warning, the choice is yours, and so are the consequences. The message was clear. Most civilizations got it immediately. The Corvan hegemony, the second most powerful military force in the galaxy, announced a comprehensive military review within days. They opened diplomatic channels with humanity and began discussions about peaceful cooperation. Their message was obvious. We are not challenging you. Please do not visit us the way you visited the Vrex. Smaller aggressive civilizations quietly shelved their expansion plans. The Belthar coalition, which had been preparing to invade their neighbors for a decade, suddenly became very interested in peaceful trade negotiations instead. But not everyone submitted without question. The Zathran Collective, located at the far edge of the galaxy, believed they were different. They had 15,000 ships and quantum weapons technology that they considered superior to anything else in known space. They had legitimate reasons to believe they could match human capabilities. When the human scout ship Pioneer entered Zathran space on a peaceful survey mission, the collective fired without warning. The Pioneer and its crew of 23 humans were destroyed instantly. The galaxy held its breath. Would humanity really enforce Protocol 7 again, or had the Vrex incident been a special case? 3 weeks later, everyone got their answer. 50 human warships entered Zathran space in a coordinated strike. Not scout ships this time, not exploration vessels. Actual military ships, each more advanced than the Horizon had been. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Zathran Collective's 15,000 ships were systematically eliminated. Their quantum weapons, the technology they were so proud of, were simply absorbed by human defensive systems and stored as power for counterattacks. The humans lost no ships, not one. But again, humanity did not exterminate. They offered the same terms: disarm, release conquered species, accept monitoring, or face escalation. The Zathran chose to surrender. Another empire fell. After that, the message became impossible to ignore. Humanity meant what they said. They would enforce their rules. Peaceful civilizations had nothing to fear. Aggressive empires would be dismantled. Over 400 species signed the Galactic Cooperation Accord within the year. The treaty emphasized peaceful coexistence, mutual aid, and absolute prohibition on wars of conquest. Enforcement was simple: humanity, not through occupation or direct rule, but through the implied threat of Protocol 7. Trade flourished across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of invasion could now focus on development and culture. The Vrex, surprisingly, became strong advocates for the new system. Having experienced both empire and defeat, they understood better than most what humanity was trying to prevent. 6 months after the summit, Hyun received an invitation to dinner aboard the UESC diplomatic vessel Aurora. Captain Jiwoo wanted to meet with him personally. Hyun accepted, curious about what the human leader wanted to discuss. They ate in a small dining room with a view of the stars. The food was simple but good. Jiwoo was relaxed, more casual than Hyun had ever seen her in official meetings. They talked about the transition, about how the former Dominion species were adapting to independence, about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Then Hyun asked the question that had been bothering him for months. Why do you really do this? You say it is to prevent what happened to humanity from happening to others. But there is more to it, is there not? The way you have organized the galaxy, the defensive networks you are helping us build, the technology exchanges. You are not just keeping the peace. You are preparing for something, building an alliance. Against what? Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. She looked out at the stars, her expression thoughtful. Then she pulled up a star chart on her tablet and showed it to Hyun. It showed a region of space beyond the galactic rim, unexplored territory, dark space that no ship had returned from in 300 years. We came to this region looking for lost colonies, Jiwoo said quietly. We found you instead. But we are still looking, Hyun. Because 200 years ago, just before humanity united, we sent out generation ships, tens of thousands of them carrying millions of humans. They were fleeing the wars, looking for new homes far from the fighting. They left before we developed faster-than-light travel. They have been out there for 2 centuries, and we do not know what they have become. Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. He was beginning to understand. Some probably died, Jiwoo continued. Some probably found peaceful homes and built nice civilizations. But some might have landed in hostile territory, might have had to fight to survive against species that attacked them on sight. And if they did, if they spent 200 years in isolated warfare, developing technology to survive against impossible odds, with none of the restraints that eventually stopped Earth's conflicts. She let the implication hang in the air. Hyun understood perfectly. If current humanity, unified and restrained, could dismantle empires with ease, what could humans who spent 2 centuries in pure survival warfare achieve? What weapons would they develop? What would they become? So when you say you are keeping the peace, Hyun said slowly, you are really preparing a united front for when your lost people return. We hope they will come in peace, Jiwoo said. We hope they kept their humanity, their ethics, their restraint. But after what we have seen in this galaxy, after 47 first contacts where 43 chose violence, we have to be realistic. Our own history taught us that isolated populations and survival situations can develop in unpredictable ways. We need this galaxy united, strong, and peaceful. Not to dominate it, but to be ready to defend it if necessary. From yourselves? Hyun asked. From ourselves, Jiwoo confirmed. The greatest threat to any civilization is usually itself. We learned that lesson the hard way. We are trying to make sure no one else has to learn it through the same pain we experienced, and we are preparing for the possibility that some of our own people never learned it at all. She raised her glass in a toast. Hyun raised his as well. To peace, Jiwoo said. However long it lasts and whoever we have to fight to keep it. To peace, Hyun echoed, touching his glass to hers. He understood now what he was truly part of. Not a human empire, not a conquest, but humanity's attempt to prevent the very thing they once were, and perhaps to prepare for the return of what they might have become in the darkest timeline. The unknown ship had appeared. The empire had fallen within minutes, and in the space between those events, the galaxy had learned that the greatest power was not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to, until that choice was taken away. Hyun looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that humanity was slowly uniting and protecting. Somewhere out there, in the dark spaces beyond known territory, the lost generation ships might still be traveling, or they might have already arrived somewhere, built civilizations, developed new technologies. What would happen when they finally made contact? Would they recognize their Earth cousins? Would they remember the values that sent them away from the wars? Or had 2 centuries of isolation changed them into something else entirely? Only time would tell. Until then, the galaxy would prepare. United, strong, peaceful, ready for whatever came next. Because humanity had taught them one final lesson. Hope for peace, but prepare for war. And when war comes, be ready to protect not just yourself, but everyone who cannot protect themselves. That was Protocol 7's true purpose. Not conquest, not domination, but the promise that aggressive empires would fall, that peaceful species would be protected, and that the strong would serve the weak rather than exploit them. It was a new galaxy now. And Hyun was learning to live in it.